that you went away.
First of all, I will not be showing my face in this video because I am filming this right before going on holiday and I really want to get this video out. I've researched a lot. Not every single thing that I'm sharing here will be 100% my opinion. I just want to show a variety of opinions. I think it would be very easy for me to just get in front of the camera or whatever and just speak about how much I support Johnny and how unequivocally on his side I am, and then get a bunch of subscribers and views and appreciation. But I'm not doing that. I'm going to show both sides. And I did initially set out in this video to say that I do not have a side that I want to take publicly, but I eventually talk about the side that I want to take publicly later in the video, so you should watch the whole video before commenting if you think that I'm too positive on one way or the other. Like if you think that I'm skewing on either Amber's side or Johnny's side too much, then just watch until the end and you will realize whose side I'm actually inclined to take. Like I said, initially I was not planning on doing it, but I feel like it needs saying. I think it matters what side you take in this. And I do not want to make it look like I'm neutral. I just want it to sound like exactly what I intend, which is I want all survivors, regardless of who they think is right here, to feel comfortable on my channel. And so I hope that me sharing my opinion briefly does not change that at all. I'm open to hearing opinions. Like I said, I'm sharing some articles in this which are not exactly my opinion, but are still useful to just know other people's opinions. So this is the widely accepted definition of the term voyeur: a person who gains sexual pleasure from watching others when they are naked or engaged in sexual activity, which is not really relevant here. This one, however, is more relevant: a person who enjoys seeing the pain or distress of others. I think this applies really well to what we have with the trial. The on-screen voyeur is granted the privilege and power of doing the gazing, the looking, determining which characters are to be the object or spectacle of that gaze. This on-screen voyeur can appear in different guises, such as the reporter, detective, sleuth, spy, psychoanalyst, sexual pervert, psychopath, murderer, rapist, photojournalist, cameraman, accidental tourist. The audience is present and treated as an invisible guest within the majority of narrative films, and as such is able to gaze into private and public spaces which the on-screen characters enters. So we are treating the trial with these people who are real people, obviously. We're treating this as if it was a film. And I think it's crazy. Whereas women were mainly under the scrutinizing gaze of spectators on the Victorian stage, both men and women became equally judged on the modern stage. Not only was the psychology of characters a growing interest for playwrights, so too was the spectator's psyche. Modern playwrights realized that even the spectator, who has no role in the diegetic world on stage, plays a significant part in the theater. The audience member willingly sits in the dimly lit theater, relinquishing all control during their spectatorial experience. The feeling of power or powerlessness while viewing even the most horrific or grotesque play, however, grants the spectator visual pleasures. In any play, the spectator becomes a voyeur, a peeping Tom who submits his gaze to the diegesis. Peeping Toms can only derive sexual gratification through actively watching an objectified other who is unaware of being watched. Despite actors and actresses knowing they are being filmed and audience members knowing there are hidden cameras producing the film, the diegesis unfolds, allowing spectators to live out their voyeuristic fantasies. In the theater, the contrast of the brightly lit stage with the dimly lit sitting area allows for the same effect, just without the advantage of the camera being able to zoom in on certain scenes. Spectators feeling alone in the dimly lit theater feel free to act as peeping Toms as they look at unwilling, helpless characters whose existence remains in the diegesis, unable to control how spectators look at them. Through this voyeurism, men can feel as though they are in their own world and take possession of the women on screen and control the diegetic world. So I will venture to say that this trial operates in the same principles. You have the celebrities who are involved in the trial, they are in the spotlight, the whole world is looking at them, and then you have the watchers of the trial, often at home, often by themselves, watching this without anyone knowing that they are watching. So I would say this operates in the same principle of spotlight versus darkness.
News anchors lined up outside the courthouse, numerous cameras inside the courtroom live streaming every minute, photographers on ladders hoping to snap a photo of the parties as they exit the back of the courthouse, lines around the block for the 100 coveted wristbands to watch the proceedings from inside, fans rushing to the back entrance screaming as they catch a glimpse of the plaintiff driving off in his Escalade, millions of people watching countless live streams, around the clock, soundbite analysis from every legal expert under the sun. To say the Depp v. Heard defamation case is a media frenzy is frankly an understatement at this point.
But what is more important than digging into the harm inflicted by either party in this situation, though, is being a regular fucking person about it. Wow. The amount of fanatic posturing about this situation is unreal. Look at the amount of content, memes, compilation videos about this trial and this very real situation, turning it all into some sort of entertainment snowball to roll down a hill. This is fucking disgusting and deplorable, and if you've participated in all of this stuff, I need you to examine very, very closely why you think that is okay.
I think this extract of article describes the situation quite well. It's likely capturing something outlandish and likely shared by Depp's rabid defenders who have flooded the internet with justice for Johnny content, that in the rapid churn of the internet has turned frightening situations into voyeuristic fodder or jokey memes. The severed finger incident, the pooping incident, Depp's snarky jokes on the stand, taking drugs with Marilyn Manson, etc. Viewers of this have been treating this as if it was a circus, as shown by the many articles and many people who have noticed how problematic this is. Johnny Depp is an icon for many people who grew up watching him, and because of that, he is heavily sexualized during this trial. This trial is supposed to be about something serious, and yet we are seeing an unprecedented amount of girls on TikTok thirsting for Johnny. We can see a clear media bias nowadays in Johnny's favor, and we do know already about the trial by media. This has happened a couple of times. It's not new. The media frenzy, in my opinion, does nothing to help in the serving of justice. It only inconveniences everyone. Me. Celebrity drama is capitalist spectacle designed to keep us away from achieving class consciousness. Also me. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard court case comes up in a conversation. Yeah, honestly, it is like that a lot. Karl Marx said that a religion is the opium of the masses. Honestly, I feel like at this point, the drama and everything that's going on with celebrities and just everything that's going on around us and this highly mediatized has become the opium of the masses, because it's what we use to distract ourselves from the exploitative structure under which we live. And I think also for survivors, this trial serves as some form of catharsis. It makes survivors feel vindicated, and it makes, or will make, depending on who wins this, will make them feel like they won over their abuser. And it's sad that because it's so divisive, it means that a lot of real life survivors will suffer regardless of who wins this. The personal relationships of the extraordinarily rich and powerful have virtually nothing to do with the experiences of the vast majority of people. Using a highly publicized event as a springboard to talk about domestic abuse, men's issues, and whatever else is understandable and even often engaging, but the attempt to compare the experiences of the rich and powerful with those of regular people's lives will be, at best, a haphazard and crude process. Worse, whatever productive conversation is to be had about these highly publicized events will be largely engulfed by the discourse of those who prefer to pathologize the spectacle. Cheap political analysis absolutely loves the media spectacles of the rich and famous because the lives of the rich and famous mostly lack the complexities and struggles of the real world. Reductionist superficial analysis is a lot easier when the subjects analyzed don't struggle like regular people. The Japanese have a saying, the misfortune of others tastes like honey. To see others suffer does one good, wrote the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. It's a hard saying, but a mighty human, all-to-human principle. There is a word in German for which there is no equivalent in English, and it's called schadenfreude. Hopefully I said that at least okay. It comes from the word damage/harm combined with the word joy or pleasure. So it's intended to mean when other people's misery brings you happiness. For what do we live but to make sport for our neighbors and laugh at them in our turn, proclaims Mr. Bennet in that most quintessentially English of novels, Pride and Prejudice. We're not even averse to schadenfreude at our own expense. As George Orwell once remarked, the English are unique for celebrating not military triumphs but disasters. And I think from my 6 years of living in the UK, I agree that it's quite a British thing. But I also think in some ways it's an universal thing. I think for the British, it's a cultural thing in the sense that they will do this more socially. They will talk about people's misfortunes with one another. But I think in our own internal monologue, we all do it regardless of culture. The thing is, this is not the first time that this subject has been brought up, and I remember the opinions were quite different back then. There were still people who hated Amber, but I think the tide was more in her favor during the trial with the son, which, by the way, Johnny has lost that one. So I don't know if that will mean this is going to result in the same outcome. I don't know if that will serve as a precedent, because they are very different trials. It's worth remembering that this trial that is happening right now is not a criminal trial, it's a civil trial. And so the outcome of this, in my opinion, is not enough to determine who, as a survivor of abuse, deserves justice. Because this is about money, this is not about justice. In this video, I will be refraining from mentioning who I believe to be the victim and who I believe to be the abuser, just purely from the fact that I do not want to make anybody who is a survivor and may have subconsciously picked a side or another feel alienated. I'm just trying to explain why they are both not perfect people, and I think it matters to say that in the trial that Johnny had against the son, he lost, and the son managed to prove, I think, 12 out of 14 instances of abuse occurred. Now, in relation to this son trial, just because Johnny lost that one does not mean that he was the sole abuser or the main abuser. Let me clarify one thing. Mutual abuse does not exist. There is one thing called reactive abuse, and he may have been the one doing that, or Amber may have been the one doing that. We need to make up our own minds about it. We need to remember that these people who are involved are both actors, and so whatever we see, maybe not as genuine as we want to believe it is. So they have both curated very careful images of themselves. Johnny Depp has often portrayed himself as this like rebellious bad boy image, going so far as wearing multiple times merch with Che Guevara. And Amber, in her first appearances in the trial in England, where Johnny sued the son, has come with this red scarf, which is meant to be reminiscent of American propaganda posters. So the poster that I'm referring to is called We Can Do It, but it's also called Rosie the Riveter. And this is kind of an iconic image used to promote early feminism, and I think Amber, as a self-proclaimed feminist, definitely knows about this reference and is trying to curate something akin to that. Reactive abuse occurs when the victim reacts to the abuse they are experiencing. The victim may scream, toss out insults, or even lash out physically at the abuser. The abuser then retaliates by telling the victim that they are in fact the abuser. And this happened to me and my abuser, so I did physically hit him once after he hit me. It was not right after, it was the same day, but like later in the day. And he tried to make it out as if I was the abuser, even though I was 17 and he was in his mid-20s and a man. Abusers rely on this reactive abuse because it's their proof that the victim is unstable and mentally ill. The abuser will hold these reactions against the victims indefinitely. It could be years later and the abuser will say, well, back in whatever year you had this reaction and acted all crazy, you're the crazy one, you need help. Reactive abuse can result in gaslighting of the victim, making them feel like they are the abuser, and it can have long-term consequences on the victim's psyche, resulting in them doubting themselves and their reality and thinking that they are responsible, thus staying in the abusive relationship for longer. Pause to read if you want a longer explanation of what I just said. Mutual abuse does not exist. Dynamics of abuse are fundamentally about a power imbalance in which the abuser consistently uses harm to gain and maintain power and control over their victim. It does not become mutual abuse when the victim responds with violence or harm. I've seen many of you are capable of understanding that a cop hitting a protester is different from a protester hitting a cop, because there is a massive power dynamic that makes a cop able to act with impunity and places immense restrictions on the protester. I've also seen folks recognize that using harm to take/maintain that power and reacting to harm inflicted on you with violence have a distinctively different moral weight/impact. But you see the same shit play out in an abusive relationship and throw your analysis out the window. The question to ask is not what individual actions everyone involved has done. It's a question of where the power is. You cannot understand abuse and how it functions unless you start asking where the actual power is and until you learn how to see it. Since some of you are clearly struggling with this, I'm gonna help you out. The term toxic relationship exists for a reason. There are plenty of relationships in which the people are just shitty to each other. Not all bad relationships are abusive ones. Abuse is about power. That said, don't assume from an outsider perspective that you have the ability correctly and consistently to determine that the relationship is toxic rather than abusive. Because folks defaulting to saying harm in a relationship is just toxic similarly silences many survivors. In a society built upon social relations of hierarchy, domination and control, abusers are not deviations from the norm, but rather the people who take their cultural messages we all receive about relationships and power to their logical conclusions. About romantic love, we are taught that we will receive a romantic partner who can fulfill our every need and fancy, and that it is acceptable to do whatever necessary to find and bind that person to us so that they can serve as the fulfiller of our every wish. And now, about this, the power dynamic, right? We do not know from an outsider's perspective who had the power in the relationship. We can see some factors with Johnny is the bigger, more famous actor. He is a man, and the man has physical power over women. He is older, and he has a pattern of dating younger women, which is not good. But that does not mean that he is the one with the most power, because that can be psychological. Johnny also has problems. To be honest, he has been raised in an environment where he was in an abusive family, so that could render him emotionally vulnerable to abuse, or his addiction could do the same. So it's not exactly as clear cut as, yeah, this is the man, this is the woman, so it means that the man must have power. It's more complex than that. It depends who is in their right mind. In my opinion, these two should not have been in a relationship from the start, because you've got Johnny, who is struggling. At the time he was struggling with addiction, and he had the pattern of being violent by punching his coworker on set. And then you have Amber, who had the pattern of being violent in her domestic relationships. So these people should have worked on themselves instead of being together.
Depp and Heard met in 2009 when Depp was 45 and Heard was 23. She'd been acting for about 5 years, and he was 25 years into his career, and one of the most acclaimed actors in the world, as well as being exceptionally wealthy. Again, I am not taking sides here, I'm just trying to even out the bias I'm seeing all around me by pointing out the very real fact that we don't know who had the upper hand in terms of the power dynamics of the relationship, but it's not like Heard came in with an advantage.
We need to remember also that these two people, like I said before, are actors. All that they are showing us is curated image. And abusers can be nice people. As this post says, all abusers are nice sometimes. Many of them are charming in public, seem like dope and caring people. Don't project your opinion of someone you haven't been romantically or otherwise intimately involved with onto someone who has. If you only know someone platonically, you may not really know them at all. And even worse is that people are trying to act like they know these people in real life when they are just fans. You can't, from the outside, you can't know, you can't see what is going on. People expect Amber to be this perfect victim for them to support her, and I think this is really setting a precedent with women coming forward with their abuse. But at the same time, I can see the same happening in the other side, although it's not as loud. I can see people expecting for Johnny to be this perfect woke guy, because he's exhibited some misogynistic behavior before, and people use that to discredit what he's saying. And I just think we need to break down this belief that the victim needs to be perfect to be listened to. Now, even if Amber is lying, like many people believe, I think she lied about some things. This is all I'm going to say. I don't know about everything, but I think there are some things that she lied about and that she's changed her story multiple times. But I think if we are to criticize her, we should criticize her for that, not for behaving in a specific way which does not match up to the expectations of the perfect victim. Where people have been trying to reverse the idea of an ideal victim by claiming that men can be victims too, and that it's revolutionary to stand up for Johnny as the stereotype of an ideal perpetrator, but instead end up sustaining harmful stereotypes and myths about victimhood by accusing Amber of making things up because she didn't cry, because she was able to look Johnny in the eyes, because she didn't immediately leave him, etc. The profile of a perfect or ideal victim goes along with something known as the Goldilocks dilemma when it comes to how courts deal with abuse and sexual assault cases. The ideal victim describes a survivor who displays enough emotion to indicate they have experienced trauma, but still maintain a professional and composed manner when addressing the court. They can provide consistent answers or cross-examination regardless of the tactics used by the defense counsel. They will cry when recounting particularly painful memories, but they will not be overly emotional or nervous. The myth of the ideal victim. The Goldilocks dilemma refers to how a survivor cannot be too hot or too cold, because if they are, they will be doubted for not showcasing the perfect display of emotions. I want to add to this the fact that if you are too emotional, you will be painted as like somebody who is hysterical, because this is something that's been used against women historically. Any demeanor differences from this narrative often causes survivors' credibility to be questioned. This is especially harmful when considering how trauma impacts how people showcase emotions. Some of the physical manifestations of trauma, especially when being recounted, include irritability, emotional detachment, depersonalization, difficulty concentrating, difficulty expressing oneself, and withdrawal. As a result of the perfect victim narrative, some of the ways that domestic abuse is addressed in our laws reinforce problems that we are seeking to solve. For example, in legal circles, there is the categorization of uncooperative victims. This refers to survivors who refuse to participate in the prosecution of domestic violence cases, for whatever reasons. This survivor has agency but declines to use it. For this reason, they are often seen as manipulative and accused of potentially lying about the abuse. The criminal justice system tends to undercut their victim status. The responsibility for the conviction result in domestic violence cases is usually pinpointed on the survivor for refusing to assist the state prosecutors, often explaining low rates of prosecution by stating that survivors change their minds too much about pressing charges. The accusations thrown at survivors who are uncooperative do not acknowledge nuances, such as not wanting to break up the family unit, fear of retaliatory violence, and seeing the costs of sentencing as outweighing the benefits. Furthermore, the concept of a perfect victim results in victim blaming when a survivor does not match the description painted of what they should look like, how they should act, etc. People often refuse to offer sympathy if the survivor is not completely flawless in their eyes. Oftentimes, the public lessens the severity of their scrutiny toward the abuser if they believe that the survivor has done something wrong and is therefore deserving of what happened to them. The conceptualization of perfect victim narratives regarding abuse only serves to continue to the reason why so many people do not leave their abusers in fear of the scrutiny that will come with every decision they have made and the court system discrediting and failing them. There are many videos about how Amber is a liar, about how survivors are expected to always be honest, and now I am not saying that I believe Amber or Johnny. Again, this is only trying to portray the side which most people don't talk about, the angle which most people on YouTube and TikTok and whatever else do not take. And that is that either the blanks in her stories, when she stops speaking, she doesn't finish her sentence right away. She stops and she collects her thoughts. So there could be reasons for that. There is the reason that maybe the blanks in between her stories are actually moments when she was aggressive to him, and that is why she doesn't say it, because she's trying to spin the story, which the story in itself is true, it's just she's omitting the parts which make her look bad. There's also the fact that yes, she can be seen as the girl who cried wolf. Does that mean everything she says is a lie? Not necessarily. It can just mean there is a basis of truth, but it's heavily exaggerated. Although I do not blame people for not believing her, because the amount of lies and inconsistencies are what make me reluctant to believe many parts of the story as well. There is the matter of how she's changed her story many times. I think that to some extent we can't critique that, and we can't say that a victim is meant to remember everything in detail, because it's just not true. Sometimes survivors and people who have PTSD can have memory impairments, which are due to the increased cortisol levels. So cortisol level helps with emotional memory, but when you have increased cortisol levels, it is known to cause a temporary impairment in memory retrieval. So that could explain some things. However, it's worth noting that there have been conversations about how Amber Heard has been faking PTSD and that she does not have it, which could be countering the argument of what I just said now. It could all be false, obviously. She does not have PTSD, therefore this argument doesn't make sense. But it's still a thing that has been on my mind, because people think that if you change your story, it's that you're lying on purpose, rather than maybe your brain is traumatized and trying to fill in the blanks, which could be happening. I know what it's like to be the imperfect survivor, because I was traumatized and abused by a man much older than me, and in retaliation I cheated on him. And because of that, when I confessed to a friend of mine about what happened to me, about the abuse, that friend turned it against me and blamed me for being a slut, and made me feel like complete trash, made me hurt, made me sad and depressed, and made me not want to confide in someone else for a while. And so this, combined with the pressure of having to tell people and having to press charges against your abuser, it's a lot of pressure for one person to handle. I used to go to a rape clinic, so they would specialize in counseling for rape survivors. I was told to my face that I will not be allowed to come. I went twice and I was told I will not be allowed to go there further unless I press charges for something that happened, now it's been 7 years, in a different country, where the person involved is also in a different country. So it would be impossible at this point for me to prove what happened to me. The only proof which I do have still are text messages between me and him from Facebook. And we used to have texts on WhatsApp, but I don't know if that can be retrieved because I changed my phone and my number and everything. But the messages on Facebook should still be there. There were also Skype messages, which again, I don't know if they can be retrieved. So I have proof in the form of messages of him threatening to kill me, threatening physical harm on me, but I do not have any physical evidence. Now, I think it's clear as day that they are both not perfect victims, whichever one of them is the main victim. So there is an audio recording of Johnny talking about wanting to rape Amber's corpse. And what I said before, he's been dating younger women for a long time, which is not great. He wrote violent text messages about burning her, about drowning her, about doing things to her corpse afterwards to make sure she's dead, which is just disgusting. I can't imagine thinking that. I've never thought something like that about my abuser. Sure, I wished him to no longer be alive, but I never thought things like this, ever. He dated a girl in her 20s who was Russian and referred to her as the little Russian here. He refers to his ex, who I don't know if it's Amber, as a 50-cent stripper. So Johnny referred to Amber as a lesbian camp counselor and tried to deny it, but there are texts to prove it. And he tried to backtrack it by saying, yeah, they were in a text, I never said them in real life. At least he admitted that it's not a great thing to say. He called her a dyke bitch. And he trashed a trailer after a female friend of Amber touched her. So we will return to this later because I want to talk about the biphobia surrounding this as a bisexual woman as well. Myself, I want to talk about it. He called Vanessa Paradis, who is his ex, a cunt. I think it was like a French cunt. So xenophobic as well. When him and Winona Ryder met and started dating, she was 17 and he was 25. And he is friends with Marilyn Manson, who has abused women, and now he's trying to sue the woman who accused him of abuse.
Got famous for arresting Polanski. What do you think about it, and do you know anything else about it?
Why now? Why now? What's going... I mean, obviously there's something going on somewhere, and somebody had to make a deal with someone for something, and maybe there's a little money involved. I don't know, but why now? He's been going there for 30 years. No, I'm not saying that to you. I'm asking the question in general. For 30 years he's been going there. He has a place, he has a house there, you know.
Especially the way they did it.
Especially the way they
called
did it.
him to give him a lifetime achievement, and then it was in the end it was a trap to arrest him.
And also the thing is...
Another thing that he's done is lying about his ethnicity to get a role of a Native American. Apparently he is adopted by someone from the Native community. So it means that he's an honorary member, but he's not actually Native American. Initially, when his perfume brand came out, they used Native American imagery as well, which was heavily criticized, and I think they stopped showing it. So Dior decided to stop showing the ad and changed it. And he has a history of violence by hitting a locations manager on set and offering him money for his silence. He called being famous similar to being violated, which, I mean, I understand that being famous is bad, but like it's not comparable at all. It's very insensitive to make that comparison. Both of them illegally took their dogs to Australia, which risked the dogs being euthanized. And he even made a joke about it. He trashed his hotel room in 1994, obviously that was a long time ago, so maybe he changed a lot. He attempted to place the blame on an armadillo, what the hell, and had to pay $10,000 for damages. This is alleged, but he apparently spent up to $2 million a month. And when he used to drink, he would spend $30,000 just on wine per month. And has 14 homes, which include a chain of islands in the Bahamas. He has bought a 150-foot yacht and apparently has not paid his managers. Apparently there was even a lawsuit about that, but it never went to court. There are rumors about him being biphobic, again, like I said before, and not liking her to be around any girl. This may be another false rumor, I don't know if it's true or false, but apparently he was refusing to learn his lines and had to hear the lines through an earpiece. And other unprofessional actions, such as showing up to set late and keeping people waiting for hours, which would result in loss of money for the production, obviously. I am not surprised if this is true, to be honest, because big celebrities tend to do stuff like this because they think that they are the whole sun. So yeah, now on to Amber and her flaws and why she's not the perfect victim. One of her adopted dogs was named in Arabic, and she on video called the dog a little terrorist. Hey, little terrorist. In one of her text messages, she took a picture of a disabled African American man and wrote, "Stereotypes are fun." She made an insensitive tweet about immigrants and ICE checkpoints. She posted on her Instagram something that looks like a staged photo during BLM protests, and then started following random BLM accounts, which she later unfollowed. She has said the N-word before. She says stupid things like how her immigrant ancestors built America. Like, shut the fuck up. Your immigrant ancestors genocided and enslaved people. She tries to make her image look like this pure, kind-hearted soul, but she lied about donating from the divorce settlement. When her shock and distaste about the police checkpoints was written down on Twitter, basically somebody responded by saying, "Police do street checkpoints all the time, nothing new here, but I guess that might be unheard of in your gated community." So again, she's showing her privilege. And responded by saying, "I grew up with those checkpoints, but that was miles from the border. Fortunately, I don't live behind gates or fences, but I do live around and alongside many people who face that fate if this continues to escalate." And she attended this protest against Trump's immigration policies in Texas. It's funny because her sign has the word apartheid on it, even though she is friends or even dating Eve Barlow, who is a supporter of Israeli apartheid. So now on to biphobia. It's being used as a weapon by the media to try to paint her as this bad person who is a cheater just because she's bisexual. There are articles with titles such as "Bye Bye Amber." And so this is the Sun, by the way, the Scum. The Scum is claiming that Amber Heard's bisexuality drove Johnny Depp insane. And she's being referred to as Depp's bisexual wife, which is so reductive. So this guy, Peter Ford, I don't know who the fuck he is, said that it's not wise to marry a bisexual. And I'm just like, what the fuck is wrong with you to say such a thing? In another article, Hollywood Live wondered if Amber Heard's lesbian friends were responsible for putting the marriage on the rocks, saying that Amber Heard, 30, has never shied away from her bisexuality and it may have doomed her marriage to Johnny Depp, 52, from the start. Like, look at this age gap and tell me how her bisexuality is the reason why their marriage was doomed. And saying that she's never shied away, should she? Like, I thought it's about being proud nowadays, no? Like, why would she shy away from that? There are other things like calling her orientation bisexual tendencies, saying that she made her bisexual tendencies quite obvious. Like, again, what is that supposed to mean? Should we stay in the closet our whole fucking lives like we used to in like 100 years ago or whatever? Is that what you want, to go back to the past where we have no rights? The Inquirer contends that the bisexual bride's lesbian past caused the relationship to crumble. Like, what the fuck? Why is bisexual considered to be an insult? There are other things to discuss here, like the taboo of mental illness, where Amber has been diagnosed with mental illnesses without a proper consultation. Just diagnosed without, being talked to at all. Like, this is not the procedure, this is not proper. You can't just bring like an expert to give a random diagnosis without talking to you. And as this post says, spending 6 hours having drinks with her ex-husband and made a diagnosis before even meeting her in person. And there is also stigma, not just about mental health, but also about addiction, which they both have struggled with. Apparently him a lot more than her, that associate being an addict with being violent and dangerous, which is not always the case. It can be the case, but it's not always the case. So this trial will, if Johnny wins, will bring the justice that many people believe he deserves, but I think it will also bring a death to all the progress that has been made in the MeToo movement. Now, I'm not saying that because of that it means Amber should win. Maybe this is the only time when I'm stating my opinion. I believe, based on the evidence we have, that Johnny has been more truthful than Amber. Now, that does not mean that he didn't do anything wrong. That does not mean that she lied about everything. It just means I'm slightly more inclined towards him being more truthful. There could be a variety of reasons for that. Maybe Amber is overcompensating by trying to embellish her stories because she saw that nobody believes her and she's desperate to be believed. We do not know what her internal monologue is like, what her reasons are. I'm just saying I'm more inclined towards that, but I'm realizing, as a rape and abuse survivor myself, that if he wins, then this will set a precedent for all the far-right incels who are taking this whole thing to generalize that women are lying about everything, which is just not true. And as this post says, it's creating a legal playbook for other abusers to silence their victims. I genuinely believe that, even if Amber is not the real victim here. I believe that this will be used against real victims. So again, what this post is saying, abusers often use the court system to continue to torment and control their victims after the relationship ends. This trial has trapped her in the past, keeps her entangled with Depp, and forces her to relive the worst moments of her life over and over. Now, again, I don't know if her story is true. Even if it's not, this is happening to real survivors somewhere. People are saying that the reason why Virginia was chosen by Depp was very strategic because it will be easier for him to win, and also because it's allowed to record and film in court in Virginia, so that the media will be on his side and the fans will be on his side. Depp fans are even harassing Depp's daughter for not publicly supporting him enough or something. Totally normal behavior. Yeah, it's crazy as fuck that people are actually going so far as to just harass. There are people who are watching this case, real survivors who are currently trying to sue their abusers, and they worry that their abusers will sue them back or something will happen to them or they will lose because of this villainization of Amber Heard, which is going to apply to a lot of women. A lot of women are going to be told that we are lying about what happened to us and that we are just like Amber and stuff like that. So there is proof of women being silenced actively by this mob mentality, which is permeating today's society. In the midst of this trial, the lawyers of Johnny and Amber have been compared with the young and beautiful Camille Vasquez and the older lawyer that Amber has, called Elaine Bredoft, and there is a lot of ageism around this whole thing. There's a lot of hatred for her just for being older and not as pretty or whatever as Johnny's lawyer. There are also rumors about how Johnny and his lawyer are dating, which is really stupid. It's very clear that Johnny is using this woman lawyer and his friendship and proximity to her to make himself look like he's not threatening to women in general. And like I said, I am inclined to be on his side a little more than on her side. But that does not mean that what he does is not a curated, purposeful thing. Again, he's an actor, she's an actor, they are both actors, they know what they're doing.
As soon as I saw like these interactions and people thinking that there's like a love interest here, I immediately thought that this was something that could be by design. Because think about it, right? You have this young, successful, beautiful woman who is sitting next to Johnny and she's clearly not afraid of Johnny, right? This whole trial, while it's defamation, is dredging up all types of allegations of abuse. So if you have this young woman comparable age to Amber, that's giving the impression that Johnny is safe to be around for women, that he is safe, he is reliable, he is trustworthy, you know what I mean? That I don't think that this is a mistake. They know that the cameras are on them, they know that people are going to pick up on this chemistry between them. If there is chemistry, it could all be acted, but they know that it creates a whole other narrative and detracts from, you know, some of the allegations that Amber is making. I think that this just makes people feel more endeared to Johnny. Look at that, she's going out of her way, bypassing everyone just to say goodbye and get, oh, okay. I don't know, either there is something going on there or this is all for the cameras and it helps him be a little more likable. I would not put it past any PR team to be crafting this narrative.
And this whole thing has been creating a lot of misogynistic attitudes, with people saying that Johnny gave her her job, which if you said to anybody in real life that a man is the only reason why they got a job, because they slept with someone, they got a job, then this will be considered bigotry in real life. So why is it acceptable now? A gentle reminder, as the Depp Heard defamation case resumes tomorrow, it's unlikely that either Johnny or Amber will ever see your tweets, memes, TikToks or posts, but other victim survivors of domestic abuse most certainly will. While that we're treating Amber Heard like this in the same cultural moment, we're patting ourselves on the back for reconsidering tabloid narratives about Britney Spears, Anna Nicole Smith, Tonya Harding, etc. Yeah, it's exactly like this. People will look back at all this bullying and TikTok memes and all this shit in 10 years and they will say we were the stupid ones. On what planet does a brand, even Duolingo, think it's cool to crack jokes about an alleged victim of domestic abuse? The Depp fandom bubble on TikTok is very real, but no brand should get anywhere near it. And there's also the makeup brand that tried to expose Amber for lying. When Amber Heard was done testifying, the judge told her she could have a seat next to her attorney twice. Instead, Heard walked out of the courtroom before the jury had the opportunity to leave for the break. It was due to start. Anyways, like, I don't understand. They said she could sit there, but she could also go on the break. Maybe she wanted to go to pee. Like, I don't understand why people are going crazy over this. The way she swigs the water bottle, it just comes across so cocky and rude. Yes, I know, it's just a drink. It is cocky and quite insolent the way she does it. Anyone notice how she takes a sip every time she gets furious? Yeah, she drinks water. Wow, what a crime. And I think the people on the other side who are complaining that Johnny is doodling and doing other stuff are equally dumb. Because he's literally doing that from stress maybe. Like, you don't know what's going through his head. There is a wave of fake news about how she's been using quotes from movies to create her stories. Even if she did use quotes from movies, in some cases she actually didn't. But even if she did, some people use famous quotes to be able to summarize something in a concise and easy to understand manner. A lot of people will use lyrics to express how they're feeling. I don't see how this is necessarily implying that it's a lie. People will use quotes from books and songs and movies and whatever to reference something, and it's normal. I've seen it many times. I don't know why this is considered weird.
Like, when I was around Johnny, I felt like the most beautiful person in the whole world. You know, it made me feel seen, made me feel like $1 million. It felt like a dream. It felt like absolute magic. And then he would disappear. And there'd be just no way to get a hold of him, no way to contact him.
The thing with Dickie, it's like the sun shines on you and it's glorious. And then he forgets you and it's very, very cold.
So I'm learning.
When you have his attention, you feel like you're the only person in the world. That's why everybody loves him.
But I will cut off my hand before I reach for you again.
He said, I'd rather cut my hand off than ever lay it on you or lay it upon you.
Drink tea. There's lots of tea.
But like lots of tea. Like lots of tea.
Where? What happened here?
Whoa, what happened here?
Simon made me feel like the most beautiful woman in the world.
Like, when I was around Johnny, I felt like the most beautiful person in the whole world.
Oh, you think it's funny, bitch?
You think it's funny, bitch?
And then we have this New York street art, which is absolutely dreadful. And why am I even surprised? These are the same people who want to fucking nuke the country of my ancestors because of something Putin is doing, which has nothing to do with most people of that country. Like, why would I even be surprised that these people who are the same warmongering people who are trying to hurt my people are trying to hurt other people for no fucking reason? And violence is so embedded in this like American culture. They're like vultures. They want to take pieces out of everyone that they can. They want to bite off and destroy everything. And it's exhausting looking at this from an outsider's perspective. I want to be able to make a video where I say that I have the opinion that yes, I believe that out of the two of them, Johnny is the one who should get the justice. I want to be able in this world to make a video like that. But it's just impossible because people will take it, run with it, and start slandering the other person involved in this trial. And they will start slandering women, making misogynistic and bigoted comments in my fucking comment section, or I don't know, maybe in other people's comment section. I just do not want to be part of that. I want to give a measured and fair criticism, and this shit is not allowing for conversations in real life about a very serious fucking subject. It's turning this whole thing into a fucking circus, like I said before. People are putting more effort into publicly vilifying Amber Heard than anyone has ever put into holding male abusers accountable. What the fuck is this? Yeah, legit, this is the whole thing. It's that you don't keep the same energy when it's clear cut that a woman is a victim and a man is an abuser. I'm not talking about this case, I'm talking about other cases. You do not put the same energy. And they are trying to destroy everything. So Amber Heard's psychologist was bombarded with negative WebMD reviews during the trial. These are unfair reviews. This reminds me of the witch hunt that is ongoing again against Russian people. Russian businesses in other countries are getting 1-star reviews on Google for being Russians, although they are not even in Russia. They have nothing to do with the war. These people need to fucking touch grass and stop harassing everyone. Now, this is another post which is really good, in my opinion, because again, despite my opinion, I'm trying to keep respectful to her, because I think something is wrong with her. Like, she's not well mentally, and I think that maybe, like I said, maybe there is truth to what she says. Even if there is not any truth, maybe there's something wrong with her. And so, why do we vilify and turn her into this monster? In the same way, we shouldn't do it to him, of course. Which women do we choose to believe? So they've presented pictures of her bruised face, busted lip, and clumps of her hair on the floor. And Depp himself has admitted to painting threatening messages on their walls in his own blood, which is so fucked up. Instagram and TikTok are full of memes casting Depp as the victim and her as the abuser, intent on making a money grab that will tank her ex's career. Nearly 5 years after exposés on Harvey Weinstein's serial predation laid bare the ways powerful men leverage their influence to cover up misconduct, Depp versus Heard feels like a jarring regression. Here is a woman recounting in agonizing detail how an extremely famous man allegedly abused her. Why in 2022 do so many people seem to hate her for it? Now, the thing is, listen, if she is lying about the incidents of like rape and whatever else she's alleging happened, if she's lying, you should still not laugh about those things when she describes them in detail. Should not make memes about it, should not make it a sound on TikTok. It is not funny, because even if maybe it's not happening to her, it is happening with other people. There are other people who are living through these exact stories, and they will see you mocking it, and they will think you would mock them in the same way, even if they are honest and truthful, and if Amber is not. Johnny Depp wants your post turning Amber Heard's graphic rape allegations into a humiliating meme, but your friends who have survived sexual violence will. This is exactly what I'm trying to say. So this is literally a TikTok sound, where women say that they wish that they were in her place, that they were the ones who Johnny was doing sexual stuff to, even though Amber alleges that she did not consent. Domestic abuse is not a laughing matter, and the domestic abuse case being used as entertainment for memes and TikToks is likely to have a long-term impact on how seriously people take domestic abuse. There are TikTok videos reenacting the descriptions of what Amber says happened to her, which again, even if it did not happen to Amber, it is happening to someone somewhere in the world. We are 8 billion people nearly, so it's impossible that it's not happening. There are ambiguities in the sordid conflict between the divorced actors Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, but some things are clear. Depp texted a friend that he wanted to kill Heard and then have sex with her burnt corpse afterwards to make sure she's dead. There is a video of Depp smashing kitchen cabinets while Heard tries to calm him, saying at one point all I did was say sorry. In an audio recording, she tells him to go put his cigarettes out on someone else, and he responded, "Shut up, fat ass." He admitted to headbutting her, though he said it was an accident. When Heard went to court to get domestic violence restraining order against Depp, she had a bruise on her cheekbone where she said he threw a phone at her. But Depp didn't succeed in court to achieve his ends. In a 2016 email to his former agent, Christian Carino, Depp wrote that Heard was begging for total global humiliation. But it's not just the internet. Believe all women except Amber Heard. Chris Rock jokes recently. Yeah, he deserved to get slapped. A Saturday Night Live sketch last weekend turned one of Depp's false accusations against Heard into a skit, treating her as a figure of ridicule and him as a charming scamp. What the hell is a scamp? The cruel mummification of the trial has been bemoaned by many as a scourge born of the internet or social media, a sentiment that reminds me of the video games cause violence debate. As a culture, we have never ever given victims of assault, abuse or harassment even a fraction of the support and restitution that they deserve and need. Not during MeToo, not now, not ever. We've given them plenty of media coverage. We interview them and we watch them and we make movies and TV shows about them. We put them on stage at the Oscars so that we can publicly absolve ourselves of our complicity in their suffering. We make jokes about how evil Harvey Weinstein is, even if our dad was one of his accomplices. But the victims are not people we want to help. They are the people we want to use. Why aren't we being honest about this? Do we not remember? Are we trying to avoid succumbing to pessimism or sullying the media we consume to distract us from every other horrible thing happening around us? That's fair. I think we are also terrified to be wrong. We feel safer administering justice retroactively. Britney Spears, Megan Fox, Janet Jackson, Monica Lewinsky will make it up to you. But you gotta wait a decade or two first. But do we make it up to them? Monica Lewinsky, though very involved with Ryan Murphy's dramatization of her life as a White House intern, admits she wishes the TV show wouldn't exist at all. Britney criticized the hypocrisy of those who made documentaries about her conservatorship for doing the same thing the media had always done, exploiting Britney and her trauma for financial gain. If we can only conceive of correcting the record after the fact, we require victims to become survivors or martyrs in order to learn our support or respect. And that's why Depp has already won. And he won a long time ago, before the trial ever started and before he even did what he did to Amber Heard. Because she was never going to be the victim we wanted with the evidence we want, because that person doesn't exist and never has. And there's nothing Heard could have ever done to be that person, and we hate her for that. Why can't she just supply some basic evidence? Where are the photos of her genitals after being raped with a liquor bottle? Where are the pictures with the bruises we think she ought to have had to be circulated around the internet for all of time, like we do with the ones of Rihanna? Why didn't she get the most brutal attacks on video or audio by anticipating them beforehand or documenting them in the immediate aftermath of being raped or abused? We want her to be the crime scene and the cop, and we just can't believe how bad she's being at both. I mean, how damn hard can it be? If she just ticked off those basic boxes, we would believe her for sure. We really, really would. But we wouldn't. If she had the pictures of the bruises people think she should, we'd say it was makeup, or maybe she's so crazy she slammed her head into the wall. And I've actually seen people say that, by the way. If she went to the hospital after the rape, we'd say she did it herself, or that was the kind of sex she liked. If she had more witnesses than she does, we'd say she's paying them, or they're crazy, or we can take their word for it. If he confessed even more than he already has, we'd say she still deserved it, or we don't like her anyway, or maybe we would stop paying attention altogether. And in a pinch, they're always just making stuff up, already used to great success by Depp and his fans. From the first time Depp hit Heard, she was doomed to fall short of a reasonable request. We don't want to be responsible for believing or saying the wrong thing, so we put the burden on her, and we resent that she just can't seem to carry it by herself. So there is a matter which is bigger than all of us, which is that there are incels and far-right smear campaigns against Amber which are using this to portray all women as liars. And this is a fact. This is undisputable. Maybe Johnny is not involved in it, like I don't think he is. I don't think he's aware of the consequences that this will have for the MeToo movement overall. I think if anything, he just wants justice for himself, and he thinks maybe this type of trial, like a civil one instead of criminal one, is easier for him to get something out of it. I do not judge survivors who want money. I just do not think that it's real justice, especially when you are as rich as he is. But that's just my personal thought. I don't think he's involved in the smear campaigns. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. Let me know what you think. So there is an army of bots spreading rhetoric favorable to Depp. One researcher found more bots favorable to Heard, but said most of these bots were from third-party apps trying to capitalize on the trial. Meanwhile, they found the highest pro-Depp bot post was shared nearly 20,000 times. The work of those bots has been further amplified by men's rights activists, the part of the far-right leaning extremist manosphere that seems to have decided discrediting Amber Heard is the key to destroying every woman who accuses men of abuse or domestic violence. Conservative media outlets have also promoted a one-sided narrative of the case. Vice recently reported that Ben Shapiro's popular conservative news platform, The Daily Wire, has spent nearly $50,000 promoting ads about the trial on Instagram and Facebook, most of it trashing Amber Heard. The presence of these bad actors has, if anything, only exacerbated the vitriol Heard has received within the mainstream. To be clear, this isn't an easy story of good and evil. It's impossible to completely absolve Amber Heard, who has her own alleged history of violence, or frame Depp as a monster incapable of kindness, charity, and the positive energy that amassed him millions of fans to begin with. Yet, you don't need to do either of those things to acknowledge that this is a case about the deeply unfunny topic of intimate partner abuse, and that the major points of this trial have already been decided in one court of law. The judge at the first trial in 2022 found Heard had proven 12 out of 14 allegations of abuse. So far, none of the trial testimony has substantially contradicted anything in Heard's original claim of being a domestic violence survivor. It's not a coincidence that this spectacle is playing out against the backdrop of perpetually escalating racist violence and the rapid erosion of decades of human rights for women, queer and trans people. The Depp Heard trial has just trained millions of people to discard their own empathy, their own rational judgment in exchange for the gleeful mockery, rejection, and belittlement of a woman making herself vulnerable in public. If you don't think that training will be weaponized against vulnerable targets, you haven't been paying attention. And now, in light of Roe v. Wade, this should be listened to and heeded as a warning. I don't want to think about what this is saying to victims of abuse who are considering coming forward, and regardless of what Heard did or didn't suffer at the hands of Depp, isn't the relentless memeing of her a form of violence in itself? Is the pummeling by social media no type of psychological assault? Are we not witnessing a modern-day witch trial? Yes, we are, and the thing is, criticism of her should be welcome, because she has done many wrong things, and she is on, on video and on voice recording and whatever, doing bad things. Like, we know about this. But criticism versus what is going on right now, there's a line between these things. I spend a lot of time wondering if everyone's lost the plot, if the erosion of empathy we see online has rendered us so inherently unkind as a species that there's no return. I don't want to despair for humanity. I want to believe that some of us are offline and mildly compassionate, or compassionate in a way that doesn't get tweeted about. That you're all out there being nice to each other, and I'm reporting on a tiny cluster of internet users with pitchforks. Unfortunately, I don't think that this wishful thinking is true. Women who are having the time of their lives disparaging Amber Heard because Johnny Depp apparently needs protecting are so goofy. Everything you say to minimize abuse allegations might one day be used against you, and the men you are fraternizing with right now will not come to your defense. Patriarchy is when only women like Amber Heard and Jada Pinkett are reason enough to call all women predatory and gold diggers, but unlimited amount of rapists, pedophiles, and killers are still not enough to justify calling all men potentially dangerous. When has a male abuser been hated and reviled as Amber Heard? When has a man abuser received as much negative press as Amber Heard? When has a female victim ever received as much support as Johnny Depp? 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced physical and or sexual violence in their lifetime, but the same man targeting feminism because of Depp and Heard's case never cared to stand for those women. Stop targeting feminism. The patriarchy affects everyone, and believe women doesn't mean believe women abusers. Believe the victims irrespective of their gender, but don't just show support to male victims. We also need men to call out toxic behavior and abuse that threatens women physically, emotionally, socially, and academically. I couldn't have said this better. You don't have to be on Amber Heard's side to see that Depp's online support constitutes a morass of media adult wishful thinking, because for many, Depp is inseparable from the fantasy entertainment that made him an icon. They cannot fathom how he's bumped into the harsh limits of reality as the rest of us take as given. So yes, the fans of Johnny Depp don't see him as a person, like a real person. They see him as characters from, I don't know, like Tim Burton's films or the Pirates of the Caribbean or whatever else he was in. That's what they see when they look at him. They don't see a real person with issues, with addiction problems, who's a person who's struggled. And not even to mention the way that he grew up. I think that this whole time in his relationship, Johnny has been trying to rescue Amber because of what happened with him and his mother. Now, I do not believe in the Oedipus complex by Freud. I think it's bullshit to say that you're sexually attracted to your mother, but I do think that people do try to replicate some qualities from their parents onto their romantic partners, and I think Johnny has seeked out Amber with the intention of replacing his mother. And when Amber went through the same struggles that his mother did, and she acted in the same, perhaps abusive manner as his mother did, he wanted to stay with her because he wanted to save her, because maybe he couldn't save his mother in the same way. And now this is just me theorizing, maybe it's not true. There are people now trying to say that it's very hard to be a man in society. I think there is a stigma associated with men coming out with stories like this, more so than women, because of other men, frankly, because of toxic masculinity, because of the patriarchy. Other men are treating these male survivors as if they are less of a man because of what happened to them. It's the fault of other men, it's not the fault of women. Women, when a woman comes out with a story like this, they tend to support each other. And so posts like this saying that a man must go above and beyond to prove he's been abused simply because he's a man. Amber only had to say the words and many believed her. and then they've had to expose every little detail of his life to just get the world to listen. I think this again applies to men. He had to work harder to get men to listen to him, not women. Women have been supporting survivors, and we've been the only ones supporting survivors. And obviously now I'm speaking in gender binary. I know that there is more than two genders. I'm just speaking in a very traditional sense of the words. I know that there is a variety of thought and a variety of gender identities, and that I think maybe most non-binary people will be supportive as well of survivors because they have suffered a lot of oppression as well. And yeah, this response just sums it up like sarcastically. Sadly, the system is rigged against rich white men. They will never win in this society. They need justice, yeah. I've been thinking a lot about MeToo and the men who had their lives ruined by assault or harassment allegations, so I decided to do some Googling into where they are now. And now I'm not even going to read all of this, to be honest. But it's shocking that nothing happened to all of these men. So please do pause to read. I will be putting everything on screen. It's just so many stories of men who cried about how their lives were ruined, and then they just went back up and nothing happened. And now they're having comparisons like this, which I do not fundamentally agree with because it's not the same at all. But I think this just goes to show that sometimes the court of public opinion is wrong. We have been wrong with people like Bundy, we've been wrong with people like O.J. Simpson, and we might be wrong now, we will never know. Again, I think that he should be the one to win this, but that does not mean I have no empathy for her. And this is the final line for me, where I'm standing. I think the way that she said to him, to tell the world that him as a man is a victim of domestic violence and see how many people believe or side with him, is heartless. It's horrible. It's weaponizing feminism against survivors who may not be female. But I also think that vilifying and minifying and mocking her is also destroying all the progress we have made with MeToo. Now we are at the end of this video, and I just want to say that yes, I do believe, once again I'm saying this, when I set out to do this video I was not going to say that I'm leaning on his side, but I wanted to be clear that yes I am. But I just think that the way this witch hunt has been going is going to hurt other women in the future who may not be liars, you know, and I'm just concerned about that. So comment down below what you think. Like this video if you like it, or I don't know, dislike it I guess, if I'm not kind enough to your fave. Subscribe for more hopefully measured commentary, because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be not necessarily neutral, because you can't be neutral, but at least try to show the other side a little. And yeah, subscribe for more of that, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Ever since the day that you